Sometimes the best videos on the channel are the ones where we just go out there and read. I've been very open and adamant about how, in prior years on this YouTube channel, we used to make a bunch of prospect videos. And that was no surprise. Back in the years 2019, 2020, 2021, prospect videos were some of the most profitable videos to make, because the teams that I primarily covered, the Red Wings, the Canucks, and the Canadiens, they all had pretty bad hockey teams. So thinking about prospects and talking about prospects was always easy money. Now, the past few years, my teams, they've started to do a little bit better. They've started to be more competitive, so the prospect talk has admittedly taken a bit of a back seat. But I did want to start changing that a little bit heading into this upcoming season, and to kick things off with the Detroit Red Wings, I wanted to dive into one of the best prospects that Steve Yzerman might have drafted, period. As the GM of the Detroit Red Wings, let's open the conversation back up into talking about Carter Bear. The Detroit Red Wings' 13th overall pick in the 2025 NHL Entry Draft. We already made our video reacting to Carter Bear and the fact that he got drafted by Detroit in the first place. But I wanted to do a lot of reading today, just diving into what scouts and analysts and a whole bunch of other websites are talking about this guy, and trying to project what he could be. Because Carter Bear is 18 years old, 6 feet, 179, center, left winger, a left-handed guy who has signed his ELC, and you can see that the net front presence is the first player-type attribute listed on his Elite Prospects page. Net front presence, physical forward, playmaker. This is a guy who is a buzzsaw in front of the goal, and who could also make some really nice plays. Scroll down and you'll see that he had scored 82 points in only 56 games this most recent season, and 40 goals on top of that too. Carter Bear was a monster in the Everett Silvertip system, and this is what the Elite Prospects Draft Guide goes out there and says. Bear leaves nothing to chance. No matter the size of the opponent, the score, or the situation, he enters every battle with speed and never concedes an inch. Bear's playoffs every night mentality also powers his offensive game. He powers through contact to get to the net, relentlessly battles in the slot for tips and rebounds, and dominates play from the hash marks and in. This is a guy whose profile is so fun to watch and so physically commanding that you can't help but respect it. And to support this even further, we're going to go over onto a few websites. Let's take a look firstly at Dobber Prospects and the Carter Bear profile that they have over here. This is, of course, the picture of Bear from NHL.com. Fantasy summary, they say that he is a relentless puck hound and a quick twitch play creator. What I like about Dobber Prospects is that they always write about prospects with the perspective of fantasy hockey in mind, especially with keeper leagues in mind. So if you're somebody who has an extra draft pick and you're looking for a young dude to spend a pick on and to potentially keep into the long-term future, this is where Dobber Prospects comes in. Their attributes list him at an 8 out of 10 in terms of fantasy upside, and an 8.5 out of 10 in terms of NHL certainty. Let's dive into what they've written about Carter Bear. Here is their June 2025 report. Selected 13th overall, Bear is now a member of the Red Wings. If it weren't for the injury that he had sustained, Bear could have very well ended up much higher than this. He has the intangible tools that every NHL team covets. He is a relentless hard worker, a constant pace pusher, and he plays a detailed game. He's shown he can make an intentional, straight-line checking play game, in addition to making more skilled and dynamic plays too. He's played center or the wing, either complementarily or as the main driver. He was one of the WHL's highest scorers on one of its best teams, even if that was hampered later in the season by Everett's injury issues and, therefore, greater defensive responsibility for Bear. In a draft whose top-end talent falls off abruptly, Bear offers a surefire top 6 bet, so long as his injury recovery goes according to plan. Now, this was also expanded upon in the January report, also written by Luke Sweeney, Sydney's long-lost cousin, I'm pretty sure. it's impossible to envision a situation where Carter Bear is not at least a middle six forward with a long NHL career. He is one of the most dominant and intense checking forwards in the CHL. If there's a battle, he'll win it, especially considering he is near the tops of the CHL in scoring. More and more people are starting to get on board with Bear's offensive game as well. He's inside-driven, creates shots from in tight, and can handle or make plays with pace. Carter Bear has one of, if not the highest floors in the draft, and there's reason to believe that his scoring could translate to a top 6 NHL role. I like the sound of that. At least a middle 6 forward with a long NHL career, one of the highest floors in the draft, who has potential top 6 scoring too? Sign me up for that. Oh wait, the Red Wings already drafted this guy, so he's literally signed on and a member of this team already. Furthermore, we've been talking all this talk about elite prospects. Well, guess what? The Elite Prospects draft guide page itself was copied and posted onto the Detroit Red Wings subreddit here, and we can dive into all of this. This is technically paid for content, but it was screenshotted and posted on Reddit by xvosh2. Because they posted it and it's now available, I wanted to dive into this here. Let's go over to Carter Bear's Elite Prospects draft guide. The elevator pitch for Bear says that he is perhaps the most intense competitor in the draft. He's fearless, physical, and always makes something happen. And he's one of the top playmakers in the draft too. They say here that he has shades of Seth Jarvis and Brandon Hagel. I mean, Brandon Hagel is one of the most underrated wingers in the NHL today. The fact that Carter Bear was ranked 7 to 12 and they ended up going 13th to Detroit speaks volumes as to how highly this guy could have gone. In fact, if you go back over onto all the draft guides and stuff, he was ranked as highly as number 8 by Elite Prospects. These other outlets had him a little bit lower, possibly due to the injury, but if you go back over onto the Elite Prospects guide, they gave him a 5 out of 10 for skating, 5.5 out of 10 for shooting, 7 out of 10 for passing, 5.5 for handling, 7 for hockey sense, and 7 for his physical game. Good enough to be an A-ranked prospect. A 6th-round draft pick into the WHL, Carter Bear clawed his way up the ranks, becoming a top 6 forward as a draft -1 with his gritty net front skills. Then he morphed into a dynamic dual-threat scorer this past season, becoming a potential lottery pick. He battled for every inch of the ice, skating through contact, throwing hits, and initiating early, wrote Director of North American Scouting Mitchell Brown about a February viewing that he had. Carter Bear has every physical skill in the book. Reverse hits, skate through the hands, trap the feet, hook the hands, etc. But his engagement, pace, and willingness to battle are all next level. Let's go back over onto the Reddit post and take a look at some of the other things here. I mean, NHL scouts are going out there and praising the heck out of this guy. Carter Bear has got jam and grit. He goes to the dirty areas to score goals. His skill is underrated too, and he's a good finisher. You're hoping for a player in that Zach Hyman mold, but you do worry a little bit about his frame holding up against NHL-sized defensemen. His feet have to improve too. So, ultimately, when it comes to Carter Bear, the next Brandon Hagel is a really easy label to toss out there, but I have a feeling that this guy might even be more aggressive than Brandon Hagel. We know that he is like a buzzsaw over there in Tampa Bay, and he's really good. He can score 30 goals a year at this point. But can Carter Bear do the same? Maybe. And for the Red Wings to get this kind of a guy, a total energy ball, playmaker, scorer, with their 13th overall draft pick, I think it's a pretty good bet right here. Props to Stevie Y for getting the guy that I wanted the Vancouver Canucks to take at 15th overall. Let me know your thoughts in the comment section below about Red Wings prospect Carter Bear and what you expect out of him heading into next season and beyond. I hope you enjoyed this British Rolls 99, and bye.